From all members and officers, our external expert witnesses, the public and the press to this meeting, whether they are watching via YouTube or attending in person. With regards to meeting etiquette, I shall invite all participating in the meeting to introduce themselves, clearly stating their name and title when they speak for the first time. This is helpful for those listening at home and for the recording. Members of council present here in the chamber, please can I ask that you indicate that you wish to speak by raising your physical hand. Same applies to officers and guests. This meeting of the Education, Children and Young People Scrutiny Commission now is called to order. I welcome everyone to the meeting of 2nd December 2024. Apologies for absence. Are there any apologies?
So, Councillor Sharp, there was apologies from Councillor Pack.
Councillor Dina. Sorry, who else? Dina Hussain, yeah. Alan Griffiths. Not sure who else. Anyone else? Can we note the absences? Yeah. Are there any declarations of interest? These are published on the Newham Council website. Any declarations? Right. Minutes of the last meeting in pages 7 to 18. Are there any amendments or any actions to follow from them? Ellen.
Yes, I'm Ellen Kemp, cooperative member. At the top of page 5 of the minutes 9 of the items, it comments that governors could be trained on this. I'd like to say that there is annual training in this area provided by Education Space.
Thank you. Which page was it? Sorry.
Page 5 and at the top line.
Page 5. Big 9, okay.
Now.
There are no minutes, matters arising from the minutes, are there? Okay, can we agree the minutes?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda number 5, Newham Safeguarding Children Partnership. Pages 19 to 56. I'm going to allocate 40 minutes for this agenda item. I'm assuming colleagues have read the report, and I'm going to invite Sarah Ruiz as the cabinet lead. Got 2 minutes, Sarah. Just
I won't need that long, Chair. This is our annual report on the Children's Safeguarding Partnership. It will be the last, I think, in this format, on the basis that we've moved into a different way of working or different way of delivering children's safeguarding. And the report is there as it stands. It's no longer the independent chair. So she finished last month, I think. So it's here as a report. It will probably go, or has been, it's either going or has gone to the Health and Wellbeing Partnership. So we always bring it to scrutiny. So and would welcome questions that most of us can answer, I think.
Thank you. Do you want to come in, Laura?
Yeah, just to say, evening, everyone. I'm Laura Eden, the Corporate Director of Children and Young People. So the regulations changed under Working Together 2023, which stated that children's safeguarding partnerships cannot have an independent chair. They are to have a chair of one of the statutory partners. So you've got Corker Online, and you might have Charles from the police.
That's true.
She can hear.
Nobody said anything.
Yeah,
So,
very cool.
Okay,
this happened at the last meeting as well. It must be me.
Last meeting was not even recorded on YouTube. Okay, can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
Brilliant.
And we can hear you.
Oh, good. That's wonderful. You can hear me.
So thank you, Corker, for joining us as the stat partner. So you'll see the report lists who are members of the executive, which is our statutory partnership. We've decided in Newham to include education as a statutory partner because in Working Together 2023, it didn't say education had to be, but obviously all our children are in school. So we've decided that education colleagues should be part of the exec. And then we've got a wider partnership group with also some subgroups. Happy, and Corker will be happy, or Sarah Councillor Rose, sorry, to take any questions.
Okay, right. I'm going to bring it to the members. Yes, in the interest of time, I'm going to take 3 questions at a time. Would that be okay? Okay. Jane, Lester, and Sophia.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Jane Lofthouse, representing Placer South. I'd just wonder if you can expand a little bit on the independent scrutineer. I see in late 2024, so we're fairly late 2024. No, you're advertising now. So what are the terms? How will this work? And I did actually also want to ask on the golden threads, whether you could expand a little on the way that you will be those and detecting them.
Yeah, and I'm working on the assumption that in terms of risks, it will be reflected in some of the targets for the rest of the document.
Over to you.
Yeah. And Corker chip in if you want. So the scrutiny recruitment, we went out to advert about 6 weeks ago. We got 26 applicants, 6 of whom were shortlisted to go on to be interviewed. When we looked at all the ones that were shortlisted, because it's done anonymously, they are all white, and the pool does not represent our community. So Corker and I have taken it upon ourselves to relook at the advert and to go out for recruitment again, because it's important that we get a diverse pool of applicants that represent the children in our borough. And we have felt as statutory partners, it's more important that we delay getting the independent scrutineer in to ensure we get the right person in. And I'm not saying that the pool of applicants that are all white are the wrong people. I'm saying we need a diverse pool.
Thank you.
In relation to the golden threads, I think it's obviously very difficult in terms of the impact of poverty and the cost of living, but it's a focus that needs to be linked to all the priorities of the safeguarding partnership. So, for example, the current priorities, if we take mental health, the additionality and the intersectionality between poverty and mental health, what does that mean for our children? How has the partnership got their eye on that? Similarly to cost of living in those areas. Child sexual abuse is a priority. Child sexual abuse cuts across all families, whether you're in poverty or not. And there's no evidence like neglect and physical abuse that it's more likely to happen if you're living in poverty. But I guess it's the partnership must consider the impact of poverty on our families throughout all our priorities. Is that helpful? In terms of the risk register, so we've gone through that as an exec, and Corker may want to comment on this if she wants to add to it. There are some risks on there that have been on there for some time, and the independent chair was committed to still having those risks. As an executive group, we agreed to review the risk register at our away day in February, because as chair, I want to focus on, are the risks to actual children and families, or are we highlighting them as risks they're not happening? I'll give you an example of that. Training. There's a lot of our partners who aren't going on the safeguarding partnership training, and that was highlighted as a risk during COVID and has been on the risk register for nearly 4 years. And that was due to capacity and taking time out for training. However, all of our partners, so in schools, in health, there are duties that those agencies provide safeguarding training. So the risk is not there. This is about people not attending training and haven't got the capacity. So actually, that's not a risk for the risk register. So we need to review all those risks. I would say we need to think about the risk that the financial crisis and the situation is going to have on our staffing establishments through our agencies. We heard from the police last week that there'll be further cuts. Obviously, children's services, like any other council department, are subjected to thinking about savings and cuts. So the partnership need to think about the risks there. So we're reviewing it, Councillor Hudson, and in answer to your question, yes, there are some reds, but they need to be actual reds and risks rather than capacity issues, I would say. In terms of page 33, which I might have a different 33 to you.
Different.
What's the small
Safeguarding snapshot.
Number 15.
snapshot? Sorry, let me.
Point 13, is that how?
Right, thank you. So, I guess in answer to the short answer is no. You know, we don't have capacity to meet demand, but we are, oh, don't lose your computer. We are attempting to meet demand by intervening earlier and earlier in families' lives, because you don't have enough early intervention and prevention. Those families reach a crisis point. That's across the board. That's in terms of health, in terms of police. She's throwing me off, my lead member. I'm sorry. I would say that capacity, particularly in early help in the council, is slim. Sits under maths division, and I don't know whether you want to mention about the lead professional and the work we're doing there.
Yeah, so Matt Khan, acting director of early help and safeguarding. We're doing a lot of work as part of the working together changes last year that come up. We're doing a lot of work around with our wider partnership around the lead practitioner role. So we have developed the lead practitioner guidance. So to really support colleagues in health as well as education to really take up that lead practitioner role. So we feel that actually this role is for everyone and not just for the council staff. So we're doing a lot of work around that. And that's a more 2-year, 3-year plan around really equipping our colleagues in early help, wider early help, including BCSS groups as well, to take that lead practitioner role. That means working with families where there might be some form of risk, but managing that risk. So that's a piece of work that we've done, and we've started those conversations. So I think what we are now at the moment is around building that foundation to be able to make sure that the early help role can be, that function can be taken up by wider partnership rather than just the council staff.
Sorry, what about, you mentioned about appropriate support. What kind of appropriate support are you giving?
Let me just, is that under snapshot?
Absolutely, yeah. So children, families who need help receive timely and appropriate support.
Right. This was findings from the Ofsted in terms of children's services. So they judged the multi-agency safeguarding hub and the assessment service that when a child and family needs help, they get that in a timely way and it's appropriate. So what, it's hard to say what appropriate is because it will depend on the family. But what Ofsted felt, it sounds like, you were here at the time, it sounds like that they judge that if a family needs this, they're getting that appropriate support and it's in a timely manner.
Yeah, that's it. So what they looked at a number of contacts, which is referrals that come into MASH. They looked at the sort of issues initially and the reasons why it came. And they looked at, so they followed through to see what the outcome was. And just to make sure that was that appropriate to the family's needs. And they found that it was. That's what it was.
Okay, thank you. So next set of questions. Shantu, any other questions?
Yes.
Jane and Sophia.
Councillor,
The next one.
Shah Corker's got her hand up. Sorry.
Sorry. Let's bring Corker.
So thank you, Councillor. So I'm Corker Caesar, Deputy Director for Safeguarding Children and one of the delegated safeguarding partners for Newham Safeguarding Partnership. I just wanted to come in on the points around the golden thread to highlight that actually those areas in the golden thread are seen as themes also in the statutory reviews that are conducted for children, in terms of rapid reviews and the local child safeguarding practice reviews. And that's part of the thinking that informed those golden threads. In terms of the risk register, I think, Laura, you asked me to come in here. Yeah, we felt that when something has been on a risk register for 4 years, it can't be referred to as a risk any longer. It becomes an issue. So we are reviewing it and looking at what to put in place to support, to achieve those outcomes, particularly around the training, which is mandated anyway. So it really isn't a risk. It's about what mitigation is in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Shantu.
Thank you all. And Shant Feathers, Councillor for East Ham. My question from page number 6, if we're on the device, maybe page number 24. So I cannot see the safeguarding team working with the school transport on this item. Some SEN children exhibit a challenging behavior during picking and drop-off times from home to school. If you already have been working with them, it would be great to include this in the safeguarding section on these documents.
Okay. Jane?
Yes, I just wanted to ask about funding is quite important, isn't it? And it's the comment about discussions with MOPAC taking place across London, hopefully to increase contribution from the police. Is there any advance or progress on that?
Sophia.
My question's for page 37 about child mental health. I mean, we all know mental health rising, and it's very hard to get appointments to get seen. How has this new scheme launched has helped that? And also, just for information, what is the rate of suicide in Newham for children?
Laura.
Yep, okay. School transport is considered under one of the statutory partners. So the safeguarding partnership wouldn't usually go into the detail of a service in that way. Their role is to coordinate the partners, the statutory partners, but also other partners in terms of the overall borough. So they wouldn't usually delve into the something like the school transport service. But if there are particular issues, nothing's come up through our case reviews in terms of our local practice safeguarding reviews that would bring the partnership's attention to that particular service. But if there are particular issues, I'm happy to take that away, given the school transport service sits within my service.
So it's not a safeguarding issue. It's possibly a service issue, but not necessarily a safeguarding issue that would come to the attention of the Safeguarding Children's Partnership. So they don't look at every issue. If there's a service issue, so, you know, I understand that there are issues with our passenger transport, but I'm not actually sure it's a safeguarding issue. I think it may be a service issue rather than a safeguarding issue. Does that help?
I understand. I saw some of the children by myself, 3 or 4 in Tollgate in primary school, because they have inclusions.
Yeah.
So I saw they are like a banging head to go inside the car. And when I was picking my boy, he has no issues. So I saw other children, how they are struggling in this school to go inside the car. They like banging on the door of the car, the head. So I saw it's really, really not very
Something that we need to take back up, I think, with passenger transport.
Yeah, they need to, because if they don't inform to you, you will not know what's
So absolutely.
So you can't add. So yes, so it's happening,
Yeah.
and I hope. Do you mind to contact them actually to find out?
If I come in,
To find out.
Yeah.
Councillor Ferdo, so if it's a particular issue,
No, 3 children.
I would like you to write directly to
You email
and then, yeah,
some details,
they'll take it up.
where the school is, whatever, then we can then look at that as a issue.
Yeah.
But it's here now. All right.
So the second question.
Yes.
Jane's question.
Yes, police contribution. There's been ongoing discussions around increasing the contribution because it's low. But they have to contribute, the MPS have to contribute to 32 partnerships because City and Hackney are together. So they have to contribute to 32 partnerships. But still, that is still a real ongoing issue in terms of the amount of money, the low amount of money they give to partnerships. So it's been a discussion, I would say, for at least the last 15 years. So I don't hold out any hope for resolution in the short term. There is a London safeguarding partnership where these things are discussed in financial contribution, but also London priorities and London issues. So we lobby London, all the London partnerships do in terms of police contribution. But we are where we are, and we other partner agencies do feel like they're subsidising the police contribution to make partnerships work.
Yeah.
Can I
Follow up, yeah.
what about in kind? I mean, how much?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So all our subgroups, so people come to meetings, all our subgroups are chaired by the partnership, the police chair to the all age exploitation and co-chair the case review subgroup. Definitely in kind, we've got a safeguarding superintendent, Charles Clare. He's very committed, very at the table. So with resource, 100%. It's a really good point. Thank you.
That's good.
But if I might say, with the expectation of the new working together, it is an expectation. I'm not sure whether it's equal funding, but certainly it should be more than, I think it's 5,000 that they were contributing, because actually running this costs quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're forever in that argument. And Laura says 15 years, I would probably say a lot longer than that. But I mean, Charles, while we've got him, is actually really, really good. So it does depend on, and he is consistent, and we're very lucky because it's not always been like that.
Thank you.
Okay, your question.
Mental
In
health.
terms of mental health, apologies, I can go away and find out the suicide rate for young people. But in terms of mental health, we've just had our SEND inspection, and children with mental health difficulties were considered. There is long waits for assessments. There are long waits for interventions. We spoke to the inspectors about how the important thing is, how are children waiting? Are they waiting well? And how is this partnership overseeing the coordination of those services, such as Newham? We've got our integrated front door. So we're trying to get to families where there are child mental health difficulties as early as possible. But it's really difficult to meet demand.
Thank you.
Just because that also was a question that came up at the task and finish group of black boys. So it might be useful to cross-reference with, because the CAMS
Health report, yes.
The CAMS team were here. So it might be helpful if we can to extract that bit from the black boys and maybe forward around that with just those bits of minutes, because actually they were really helpful and insightful.
Okay, thank you for that, Sarah. So the next round of questions, Lester, Jemima, Jane.
Okay, my question is regarding small page 17, big page number 35, and it's about the priority 2 on child sexual abuse. And you've got various things that your intent, or you have done this particular year, and you're going to have an audit. How do we know that this has worked?
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, yes, I forgot the 3. Yeah. I'm up.
I am Councillor Jemima for Wallen. Thanks, Chair. My question is from page 44, large big numbers, and then small is 26. And it's regarding learning from the system, child safeguard practice reviews. From just the first line, we talking about there are 7 noticeable incidents and that has occurred involving 9 children, and compared to 3 incidents involving 5 children. My question here is, what have we learned from this, and what can we do to give it at all preventive?
Okay, thank you. Jane.
Oh, yes. Mine is overlapping from the SEND section, and it's where SEND and I think safeguarding overlap. Because I must say, I was sort of stunned about the referrals of autism or the assessment, because it's gone down from 84 weeks to 62 weeks. I mean, 62 weeks is over a year. And you were referring earlier to, get children earlier. So how in terms of safeguarding are you managing the autistic children who are going to be diagnosed in a year or 2 years' time, but are still probably putting quite a lot of problem at the moment?
Okay. How do we know things have worked? Through a variety of methods. So the partnership wants to hear about what families are telling us, whether the intervention from social care, but also the police. So, for example, looking at data, how long a child is waiting for their perpetrator to be convicted, how are we supporting that child in social care or early help, but how the partnership can do that from a very macro level is commission a multi-agency audit through our performance and quality assurance subgroup, where all partners audit their records. So they they'll take 20 children who have, suffered harm through child sexual abuse, and then go into the different agency records, come together and learn from where the strengths are in terms of the partnership's response to that and where the areas of weaknesses are. So through in-depth audits, we know that things are working. Through data. Now, the issue with data around child sexual abuse, we know that we only know about children. Child sexual abuse, there's a picture of an iceberg where you know about the children above the iceberg, but you don't know about the hundreds of thousands who are being sexually abused below. Research will tell you that adults often disclose childhood sexual abuse approximately 15 to 20 years after that abuse has taken place. So it is very hidden, child sexual abuse, and it's how you, with the partnership, think about what all the agencies can do, what the NSPCC does around private in your pants and reception, etc., PSHE, to ensure children are safe. I think at the moment we've got 1 child supported by a child protection plan under child sexual abuse, which is incredibly low. But child sexual abuse is a particular form of abuse where you can't have a child continuing to suffer harm. Either the harm is resolved within the family and the perpetrator's removed, or the protective parent protects, or the child needs to be removed. So you would expect low numbers. In terms of what we've learned from local practice safeguarding reviews and rapid reviews, huge amounts, I would say. So each review, local practice safeguarding review, takes about 6 months. It should take up to 6 months. Sometimes it takes longer because we're potentially waiting for a criminal conviction and you can't release the learning or go into the detail before you have that, or we're waiting on something else, waiting for family engagement. We always try to engage, the partnership try to engage with families. They're independently authored, and the agencies are pulled together to reflect on the learning and think about what are the main areas that we need to make changes in. And they're published reports, so I would encourage people to read them. They're on the Newham Safeguarding Children's Partnership website. The case review subgroup, that's its main task, to oversee the production of these reviews, but very importantly, oversee the implementation of the reviews. So I give you an example. We had a rapid review of a baby who suffocated by swallowing like having a nappy sack. You know, those of us who are old enough will remember that it was all don't put plastic bags on your head, but actually nappy sacks, if they get into the airways, can cause, you know, fatality. So, but what's the nationwide learning around that? Not the Newham learning, but what's the nationwide learning? Because there's no real print on the back of nappy sacks about the dangers. Parents do tie them to the cots, those types of things. So, you know, it's how far you go with the learning. And sometimes we write to the national panel asking them to put something out. In terms of autism assessment, still waiting 62 weeks. It's an incredibly long time for families to wait. How we're no different to any other local authorities and any other partnership in terms of health and how we're managing the demand. It's about, again, waiting well. So just because a family gets a diagnosis for autism on one day that they didn't have it the previous day, it's not like their life changes. You know, they still need the support that they had before, that they've got after. So it's about how we ensure that parents are put on pathways, get enough support, children get enough support in school that manages the autism or the suspected autism, never mind the diagnosis. What the SEND inspection said is that we are signposting too many parents and families, and we need to handhold more. So that will be part of the SEND inspection action plan, how those families who are waiting an autism assessment, that we are coordinating their support package rather than signposting them to different support agencies.
And that's working.
I'm going to bring Sarah in.
Just going back to the safeguarding reviews, because it's not always children's services that it has an effect on. So and it was probably about 2 years ago, we had a very tragic case of a young woman who had taken her own life while living in a squat. And the learning that we got from that wasn't just around children's, it was around actually what about housing? Because she was a young woman of 16 and she had been to housing, and because she was, you know, so I think the learning often goes further than just children's services, because this isn't a one council, you know, headline. This is actually, there are often other people involved in those serious case reviews that are not children's services, but what their actions are have a knock-on effect on children's.
I'm going to bring Polka in and then Mads.
Thank you. So just wanted to pick up a few points that Laura has already made. So picking up on the point around the child sexual abuse, NEL ICB commissions the Sunrise Hub. There's a lot of work going on currently in terms of raising awareness around this issue of child sexual abuse, because as Laura said, it takes a lot of courage for somebody to come out to disclose this has happened. And a lot of times they do it in adulthood. So we are really very aware, acutely aware, that the number of referrals needs to be increased, because we know it's not reflective of the true picture across NEL. So there's work going on to raise awareness. We're also aware that there's an increase in the demand for the service. So again, there's a business case which is in development by the NEL Babies, Children and Young People program, looking to boost the capacity and uplift the resource for that hub. But it's a very good service. It's been audited a few times, and I think the service presented at the recent Child Sexual Abuse Summit for the London region, just highlighting some of the good work. So that's child sexual abuse. I wanted to also pick up on the questions around learning from the child safeguarding practice reviews. And yes, to refer to the thematic learning that took place in terms of those large sibling groups. That has happened. Some of the themes that were picked up was the nature of some of them being cross-borough. So there was a cross-borough event that took place around that. And then there is going to be a re-audit to see how the learning is being taken forward. I think there was a question around the themes. there were themes around neurodiversity. So definitely having that early intervention will help. There were themes around gender and also race. So those were all picked up in terms of intersectionality. So again, hopefully the audits will be able to pick up on the impact of that learning going forward. Final point about learning is also to do with sudden infant deaths. So we noted a spike in the number across NEL. So there's been a steering group in place driving awareness raising in all the places. So in Newham, for instance, there is a subgroup that is looking at raising awareness, having a multidisciplinary approach in terms of how we educate families, parents, and around safe sleeping for their children. So it picks up on Councillor's point around housing as well, because again, overcrowded housing, poor housing conditions also have a bearing on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mads.
I was just going to come back on the comments with regards to children awaiting special educational needs diagnoses. To be referred for a diagnosis isn't a diagnosis in itself. So not all young people who are referred for a diagnosis receive a diagnosis. Also, all neurodiversities are across the spectrum. So you can be at any level of development within that spectrum. So you may be a teenager working at early years level of education. You may be a very young child who's actually got very high IQ and is working actually very well in school. However, we are very aware that children who have SEN, and particularly those with the neurodiversity or with their speech language communication difficulty, are more at risk of various safeguarding issues. There are a number of difficulty communicating needs and wants and understanding the boundaries between themselves and other people that may be recognised by other children that aren't neurodiverse. Having said that, in terms of young people's, children and young people's services, much of the time we're reliant on referrals. So mass referrals would come through either a self-referral from a family looking for special educational needs, support, maybe respite care, maybe some actual weekend holiday type provision, or it may be that actually the parents have asked the school who is processing some of that assessment and referral business, and maybe also the child is seeing the educational psychologist, or they may be seeing an outreach worker from the education team, or from maybe one of the autism provisions. The parent may actually say, actually, we know that they're doing very well at school. We know they're getting the support at school whilst they wait for the diagnosis, because it is the school's responsibility to provide reasonable adjustments and the appropriate care and support before a diagnosis and before, should an education, health and care plan be applied for, appropriate needs should be met in school. But also where the child may also need that extra help outside of school. Okay, but you know, it is quite hard to understand sometimes that a referral to be assessed for a diagnosis doesn't always end up with an assessment, either in the neurodiversity that the child's been assessed for, or in another neurodiversity that may have been masked by some challenging behaviour.
Thank you. Okay, I'm mindful of the time. Unless you want to stay till 10 o'clock, and have long answers, but my colleagues will know I'm someone I like to finish on time. I've got a few questions, but first one is a comment. On page 23 is the NSCP executive members, and Sarah, they've omitted you out, and I'm just thinking.
It's on it.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay.
But they haven't omitted me.
Right, okay. So you're not part of the NS. Okay.
How it used to work and how it will work. But how it used to work, I would meet with Julia 4 times a year.
All right.
But we also have an extended executive meeting, so the executive, and then there's wider partnership, and I would always go to that. But no, I'm not part of the I'm not part of
Okay.
that partnership.
And in the new working arrangements, you're not still, okay?
But I mean, but there will be engagement.
Yeah.
It's not that I won't be engaged.
That's fine. Just, I thought you were a member of, okay. I learned something.
And never have been.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I think I'll ask 3 questions at a time. I've got 6, I think. With the introduction of the Working Together to Safeguard Children 2023 framework, what are some of the key changes or improvements that have been implemented? The new NSCP arrangements, I know you mentioned about that, there'll be a new chair, but it won't be an independent chair. Anything else?
In terms of the safeguarding partnership, no, it's about one of the STAT partners chairing the meetings and chairing the exec, and sharing that out, and then also the independent scrutineer role, which I think is really beneficial, because the independent chair used to mainly chair meetings and coordinate, like Sarah's just said, she met with her 4 times a year. A scrutineer is going in and scrutinising the functions of different teams and different services across the partnership.
Okay, brilliant. So to help the commission members understand, could you explain the subgroups and the strategic board as outlined on pages 24 and 26 of the document, how they collaborate with the NSCP? Because there's so many subgroups. How does it come together? How does it work?
The subgroups all report to the executive. So the executive oversteers, which is why Councillor Ruiz isn't on it, because it's an executive of the partnership, not the council, has subgroups, and the subgroups report to that executive, and the executive issue direction. So if you undertake a review of a child, that will go through the case subgroup, will be signed off by the exec, and the exec delegates to the subgroup to oversee the implementation plan, for example.
Brilliant.
And each of those subgroups are chaired by members of the partnership.
That's right.
Okay. So Newham has a significant number of voluntary and community sector organizations working with children and young people. Are all these organizations part of the NSCP? If not, how would you ensure that they align with the 2023 strategic framework of NSCP to effectively safeguard our children?
Yeah, they are all part of the safeguarding partnership. Any agencies who work with children in borough are part of the Newham Safeguarding Children's Partnership. They haven't always been at the table, and that's not the voluntary and community and faith sectors issue. I think that's been the partnership issue. So we now have VCS partners at the table.
Okay.
As chair, I'm making a link with the coordination of the voluntary sector and getting our VCS partners in subgroups and at the main partnership.
Okay, brilliant. So following Sadie's review, how has the safeguarding priorities, how have the safeguarding priorities in Newham been adjusted to better protect children and young people from CSE? That's after the studies review. What measures have been introduced to strengthen to address the reasons learned from Sadie's case?
Following Sadie's review, there was a refocus, and that's part of the reason why child sexual abuse became a priority for the partnership. So it really drove that priority for the partnership, her review, which is often the case in terms of when you find things, how you're going to monitor that.
Okay, thank you. Single point of access or integrated front door in East Ham has been rolled out. Can you explain a bit about it, please?
Yes, I can. So the pilot has been rolled out since November last year and until sort of March next year. Since then, we have, so the pilot was around East Ham, and then we've moved to Glasgow as well. We've received a lot of positive referrals from agencies, so referrals are starting to come through. So we've received referral from GPs, from schools, and those are referrals and linking to your previous question, Councillor, around the increase of self-harm, rates of self-harm. We've seen a significant increase post-COVID coming into the MASH. So those referrals are coming through, and what we've seen is that 90% of all those referrals that come to the IFD into the front door has been processed within 3 working days. So what we're saying is that we are very quickly reviewing, triaging them, and offering support to families, especially those who might be waiting for a long sort of CAMS sort of referral. So we're getting a lot of referrals from CAMS as well. Those where they are waiting for a referral support. They're sending to the IFD, so the IFD can look at through the Newham, through other sort of voluntary sector organisations around supporting families now whilst they wait for CAMS referral. So far it's been really positive. We had a university sort of I'm trying to find out the name of the university. University who did a review of IFD. We're waiting for the outcome of that review, because obviously the pilot has not ended. But so far it's been positive.
Okay, thank you. My last question. When looking at the data on child deaths on page 47, Newham had a higher number of child deaths in 23-24 period. I understand health complications of babies born very early below 20 weeks of gestation. Any of the deaths, other than the neonatal deaths, could they have been prevented?
Can't say that. The child death overview panel talks about modifiable factors or preventative factors. So I don't know if Corker's still on the call, but
I am.
you are, Corker, you might have to come in here. So by the Safeguarding Partnership annual report not having a preventable section, I would assume there isn't any deaths that they've concluded the child death overview panel could be prevented, but they have concluded in a number of cases modifiable factors.
So would that be where that Dappy bag comes in? Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to add anything?
So some of the areas that the child death review process is looking at in terms of the learning is preventable areas or areas like that are modifiable. So I think like asthma. There's been a lot of work around asthma for the last year, and I think last week we had a summit looking at the learning from asthma deaths. So that's one area. There's been a lot of work with junior doctors around early recognition of sepsis, because that was recognized to be one of the themes around the deaths. So that has happened. I referenced the sudden infant deaths, what we call SUDIs, that there is a steering group. We've implemented the prevent and protect model across NEL, which means that every contact with families should count, and that families, regardless of who the professional is, be it police, be it health, be it social care, be it housing, they receive training so that they can give that targeted information to families, because we recognize that the traditional model wasn't effective, especially with younger families and multi-generational families. So that is being looked at. I'm looking at this one about resuscitation, failed cardio resus on the page. It didn't come out as a theme when I looked at the NEL-wide theme, so it's something I would have to go away and have a look at. But yeah, but mostly the deaths that we are reporting are usually those which I've referred to.
Thank you. I'm going to bring this agenda to a close. I want to thank the officers. Just the interest of time, I'm going to close this agenda. I have to say it's a really good report, and the focus areas outlined in the report for 24-25 clearly demonstrates a strong commitment to looking after our children and young people. I want to commend the report for prioritizing children and young people needs and ensuring that their well-being remains at the heart of the work that you do. And I want to thank the independent chair, Julia Stevens-Rowe, Laura, and your exec team for the report. And we now, as a commission, have to agree and note the report. Can we note the report? Thank you. And can I have a seconder?
Yes.
Jane, thank you. Right, moving on to agenda 7. Six, yeah.
Could go to 7 if you like.
The meeting early. Yeah. Experiences of children in care and care leavers in Newham. Now, again, I'm going to stress about the time. I'm mindful that I want to finish by 9. I was going to allocate, or I allocated 40 minutes. We've just run over. For this agenda item, I'm going to allocate 20 minutes. And I'm going to invite Sarah.
Yeah, well, this is, I would say that if I look back to 2018 and I look forward to now, this is probably an area I personally have seen the greatest improvement. So just looked at care leavers in 2018, it was not great. Whereas now, I wouldn't say that it's gold standard, but actually, I think that most of our young people are really appreciative of the help and the support that they receive. And some of you will know, but we've just recently, or this year anyway, got care experience as a protected characteristic, which actually took quite a long time, and it will take a long time to fully implement. But that was work that we did entirely with the care leavers. So there's been some really good work done. And I would say again, I would encourage you to visit the Cove, which is just across the road. Because actually, that is the place where our care leavers and our children in care, to be honest, hang out. The children in care less so, but our care leavers, that's their chill space, that's where they have meetings, etc. And I know that they would be really welcoming for you to come and have a conversation with them.
Laura, very quickly.
I don't think there's anything I can add. We're happy, Matt's the lead in the area. We're happy to take further questions on the key line of inquiry, or if anything's not clear from those key lines of inquiry.
I just want to remind, when you're giving answers, maybe just one officer, and then if a member needs to come in, rather than everyone's coming in, just to keep to our scheduled time. First 3 questions from colleagues. Sophia, Lester.
Yes, all right.
Jane, I've got 3 questions, and if you can keep it brief.
How does the council plan to reduce the percentage of children entering care due to abuse and neglect?
Lester?
My question is on needs. For those children not in employment, training, etc., what are they actually doing?
Jane?
My question's very, very similar, really. It's to do with the percentages there of the 3.7% of the general population and 36% of those in care. So it's go through that one.
Right.
Do you want to come in?
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, in terms of reducing care, how does, so we have so in terms of reducing children coming into care, there are going to be some children who are going to come into care because safeguarding is paramount, and we ensure that children are safeguarded, and if they need to come in to our care, then they need to. Well, that's always the last resort for local authority, and the principle of the Children Act is very clear. that we should do everything we can to ensure that children remain in their family home. So we have a team which supports children in the before they come into care, so educare support. So we have an educare team which we have expanded recently to really think about that family support. So those children who require sort of additional support, we are really looking at different initiatives, different sort of strategies to really support children at home. So we've expanded our educare team to ensure that only the right children are coming in. We have access to resource and care panel, which we have stood up in July, which then scrutinizes all the children that need to come into care. So if a child needs to come into care, if it's an emergency and a child needs to come, so we feel that child is being abused and they need to be removed, police protected them, then obviously they will come into care. But those who are sort of coming into care in a planned way, they have to go through the access to care and resource panel, where we will look at all different sort of options that are available, are there family members that children can go to so that we can provide support. Every children that comes into care, we always have a plan around reunification plan, around thinking around, you know, can we do additional work? And now they've come into care, can we do some work to ensure that the children can go back to their parents' care as soon as possible. So that's something that we are doing. So that's educare.
Needs,
Eat.
yeah.
So in terms of eat, I mean, what are the children doing? I mean, we are looking at sort of different options. So children who are in care, they have well, our children obviously have social workers. So we're trying to engage children in sort of different sort of activities and educational activities. Those children who are leaving care, they've got personal advisor who is looking at thinking around other sort of opportunities, thinking around what through their pathway plan, through the care plan, what kind of stuff that they like, to really think about, you know, engaging them to those activities, especially those children who are not attending education. But we have a strict sort of reviewing process that we regularly reviewing to ensure that we are measuring in terms of and monitoring those children who are not in education.
Can I just add to that? Care leavers or people with care experience have, as you can see by the data, a less chance of being in education, employment and training. So however many children you might have or nieces and nephews, for our children in care, and they're your children in care, 1 out of 2 is not in education, employment or training. That is massive. And that is something that needs to be resolved. It's nationally understood that if your care experience, it's not because of the child themselves, it's because of the experience they have, whether that's abuse and neglect, moving around placements, which causes you to move around schools, so you're less likely to get your grades, etc., all impacts on the employability of our children. What I would encourage, and we're looking at through care experience as a protected characteristic, is actually our children in care should fare better than children who aren't in care, because as their corporate parent, they have access to any work experience or any job they want to do. You know, they could be in democratic services, they could be a social worker, they could be in HR, legal, finance, and actually being at home, chances are you've got work experience in your own family business. Well, the council is their family business. So we really need to encourage how they are employed. Our children are employed, given opportunities by us, and then we will do that with the partners.
Each one of them is involved in the virtual school. So we have the virtual school, which isn't virtual at all, really, but actually they have some huge successes. A lot of our care leaving go on to university and do very well, but it is that percentage of children who are not going to be doing anything, but they are encouraged with CVs, interviews. We do quite a lot of work with our Newham work. And as Laura said, you know, work experience, we have the biggest company in the borough, and actually we should be sweating that asset, really. And it takes a little while for people to understand that, but we shouldn't have, they should come and do work experience or be given every opportunity, apprenticeships, that sort of thing. And that takes a little while to run through the organisation.
So saying that these kids are actually doing nothing at all?
Oh, no, they're not doing nothing. I mean, well,
Yeah, some of them are.
Some of
Some
them
of them aren't. Some of them are on benefits, have mental health problems, have disabilities. Some of them are not in education, training or employment. They might be encouraged to come to a meeting, you know, and just expanding their experience. But yes, some of our young people, 1 in 2 of our young people, in accordance with the data, are not
doing
in
anything.
education, employment or training. And that's why it's on the performance dashboard of this commission and this scrutiny, because you need to, I would suggest, sorry, I can't tell you what you need. I would suggest you are on at us about that.
So just to add on from what Lester said, so we have looked after children, care leavers in the needs category, but it don't mean that they've disappeared. We know that they exist and social workers are engaging with them.
Yeah.
Yes,
you can
definitely.
take a horse to water.
Yeah. And I get that. Any other questions?
So it's not, I mean, our looked after children are no different, apart from the fact that they're looked after, than any number of young
Oh, yeah.
people in this borough who are not in education or training. You know, we have a whole raft of young people like that. And our young people are our responsibility. They're your responsibility.
Before I bring Shantu in, did you want to come in, Madeline?
I was just going to add, and I'm sure our officers here will concur with this. We all know within our own families that there are some young people, because they've had a difficult time, and of course our young people in care have sometimes had a difficult time across a long period, that actually when they get to the very stressful time that is exams, preparing to go to college, preparing for year 11, all that kind of thing. Sometimes they do need to take a learning break, and they may have mental health issue, which means that maybe they're they're educated at home by borough support teachers. Sometimes they're actually taking a mental health break, which has been recommended by professionals. They will appear in the NEET statistics because they're not in education or training if they're taking that learning break. As Sarah has said, we have the virtual school, which goes up to, does that go up to 18 or to 16?
21.
21, even better. Any of our young people that need to have that extra step, remember, college and FE is funded until the year of your 19th birthday. So, and that's if you don't have any kind of extra that needs to be implemented for you as a reasonable adjustment, whether it's because of an education, health and care plan or because you're actually at college or school support level. So I think that needs to be remembered as well. And I don't know if my colleague has anything.
No, I'm going to come for questions. Shantu and then Jane.
Page number 6/60. Do you analyze fostering and adoption waiting lists? And what measure is the council taking to address these issues?
What page was that? Sorry, Shantu, what page?
Waiting list?
The fostering and adoption.
All right, so thank you, page 6.
Yeah. So do you analyze fostering and adoptions waiting list? And what measure is the council taking to address these issues? And my additional question, what strategies is the council implementing to mitigate these challenges, particularly in terms of the recruitments?
Thank you, Shantu. Jane.
Right. Picking up on the end of Shantu's and on what Sarah said just now regarding the protected characteristics, and you said that their children in care are being given extra opportunities and so on in the council. So I wanted to ask one, how that's working, and I know you said it's early days, but how's it working with the council? And is it included in the job descriptions? that they're open to in recruitment.
So can I take that?
You take that.
Yeah.
Care to apply for the jobs.
That's
I'm going to bring, is there anyone else who wants to ask a question? Right, I'm going to bring Laura in.
So Jane, if I could just come to you first, if you don't mind, because I think your question is in relation to the other report, but we can answer that now. Yeah, is that okay? In terms of recruitment, so first of all, we've changed our HR database where people can self-declare that they're care experienced. They automatically, if they meet the main criteria of a job description, they will be ring-fenced for an interview automatically. So recently, for example, 3 of our care experienced young people were successful in gaining a job in our health visiting services as health visiting assistants. It's also the wraparound support you put in place for care experience. It's all very good them getting the job, but they live on their own. They need help being woken up. They need help being supported. Sometimes they're anxious. They don't know what questions to ask. So they get a support worker within the work who knows that they're care experienced, like a pseudo parent in the workforce. So there's lots to do, but it's going in the right direction. Yeah. In terms of fostering and waiting lists.
Yeah, in terms of fostering, we don't have a waiting list for fostering. So any child where we assess that requires a foster placement, we will identify one, either internally or through external fostering agency. In terms of recruitment, it's a national issue, as we've outlined in the report. We have a lot of different strategies. We are proposing and planning to move forward to try and recruit more foster carers. We're part of a fostering hub with other local authorities, thinking around in terms of recruitment. So with Barking and Dagenham, Redbridge, we are part of a consortium thinking around recruitment. So that's one strategy. The other is around just talking to foster carers to see if they know anyone, because we know that just word of mouth it's very popular, and we tend to recruit more through that way rather than through usual advertisement. But we are thinking about different strategies to recruit
and enhancing what we actually offer our foster carers. So for example, I know in the recent new leisure contract, our foster carers and their foster children and their own children get free swimming, right? They also pay no council tax.
Yeah.
And so we have regular meetings with our foster carers, but we also recognise that they are an ageing population. And sometimes actually it's their own family members who take on the mantle of that. And the other thing that I'm just about to start to do with Councillor Anne Easter, who's the Commissioner for Faith, all right, is that we're going to be looking at how we engage our faith communities, because I think that not enough is known or understood about how you become a foster carer. And it's also, it doesn't have to be permanent 7 days a week. Sometimes you can be a foster carer just for the weekend or just for school holidays or whatever. So it's a whole raft of things. Another thing that we do with our housing colleagues is if you are in a 2-bedroom house, we will move you into a 4-bedroom house if we've got the 4-bedroom, but if you are then going to take on additional children.
Okay.
So, we try to make it easy.
Yeah.
But actually it is not people talk about it as a job. It is not a job. It is a life commitment.
Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to the next item. Before I do that, I know, Sarah, you have mentioned about the protected characteristics. Yeah. So it's amazing to see that care experience is now recognized as a protected characteristic. All of us in this room are corporate parents. We care about our looked after children so that they have the best start in life. Since this status was introduced, what positive changes have been made to improve the lives and outcomes of looked after children? I know you mentioned about the Cove and even about the housing, you said getting a bigger property for,
The carers.
yeah, but for children, what else is?
Our care leavers, well, I think Laura gave an example that
Sorry, councillors, we want to focus on NEAT because that's a real issue for our care leavers, but also there are other advantages. With care experience as a protected characteristic, it's now in EQIAs, or will be in every EQIA, will be in every contract. So we will be asking people as part, what will you be doing for our children? How many will you employ? And what additional services? So like the free swimming, that's because their care experience is a protected characteristic, for example, and it's how we influence the commissioning and the contracts, which I think will be much further reaching than just doing that as a council alone.
And the young people were very, very clear that they didn't want that just as a tick box exercise. And we also made it very clear that it will take about a year to change council policies because it's an HR issue. So step by step, we will see real changes.
Yeah.
And, for example, I mean, when you talked about the 3 care experience getting work as health visitor assistants, they did that because of the protected status.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they probably may have got it on their own merit, but actually, because of their protected status, they had a ring-fenced interview.
Yeah. Thank you. So just to understand, so what's the difference between child in need and a child protection plan?
Yeah, so child in need, there's a clear definition around child in need, which is to promote and safeguard the welfare of children. So these are children who require additional support to make sure that they're able to live an ordinary life. So those would be children where we are supporting, where the parents have consented to support. Now, child protection is also consent-based, where parents have consented to sort of support. Now, the difference between child in need and child protection is where a child is suffering significant harm, where we have initiated child protection investigation, and we made a decision that actually this child needs to be presented to an initial child protection conference because we are worried around the safety of the child, and the child has been has suffered significant harm. So they'll go to an initial child protection conference where they would be made subject to a child protection plan, which will be a multi-agency plan. Both child in need and child protection are multi-agency, but child in need is sort of a lesser threshold where we're supporting a family to meet a child's needs.
So is it that to prevent that child having a protection plan? Is it the preventative work?
Yes, so child in need would be yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to bring that item to a draw. And again, this report is to note, it's come to our commission that we note the report. And can we agree the report and note it? Yeah. Brilliant. And can I have a seconder? Excellent, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7. Looked after children, sufficiency assessments, Newham. That's page 61. Again, I'm going to, it's what, 20 past. I'm going to allocate 20 minutes for this item. And if I can remind you again, keep your questions and answers brief. I'm going to open up for questions. Sophia, Shantu, Jemima, did you want to come in?
It was regarding
The previous item, okay. Anyone else?
Question, if you wanted to write it down and email I'm quite happy to answer it outside.
Jane, yeah? Okay. So we got Sophia, Shantu, and then Jane.
So how is the council preparing for the potential end of funding for initiatives like thriving communities, May 2025?
Shantu?
Sorry, Chair, just give me 1 second. Need to find the page number.
Okay, I'll bring Jane in.
Page number 62. Okay. We have currently 415 children in our care. Our rate of children in care is still below the rates for England. However, it's gone to 51 per 10,000, which is now in the line with our stats neighbors. So as is currently in below rate, so as you're working on this area, so you know the weakness and strength very well. So how can you improve the weakness and which area you need to improve? And why we are on that rate and which area we need to improve?
Jane.
And the other side of that, really, the point at the top of 62.331, it's just the disproportionately high number of adolescents in care. So as Shantu's just pointed out, maybe not so high on everything else, but why the adolescents so high, and what can be done, what exploration can be done into it?
Is that 3?
Yeah, we've asked you 3, yeah. Laura.
Oh, I should do this.
Yeah.
With regards to the thriving community, it's a really good question. And it is coming to an end in May. We are looking at our internal sort of resources, thinking around the youth empowerment service and other services that we have and how we can utilize in terms of those services to take up the learning from thriving communities. So far, for thriving communities, as you see from the report, the impact has been quite positive. We've been able to reach a lot of children who are at risk of exploitation and serious youth violence. So it's just looking at our internal resources. We are hoping that there's going to be some funding from the government, but we don't know what that is at the moment. They've been understandably quite vague around what kind of support that we would receive. So we've had some sort of positive news from supporting families grant. So they said, although it's not going to be the traditional form, it's going to be slightly different. So the message is that we are going to get some support, but at this present moment, we don't know. But what we are doing in the meantime is thinking about our internal resources, how we can be creative using the resources that we currently have to meet the children's needs.
Okay. And the other question?
In regards to the stat neighbors, so 400, so it's 51 per 10,000. I think we want to stay there. So at the moment, because it's in line with our statistical neighbors, because that's the key measure that we use. So at the moment, I think our numbers are as where they should be at the moment. We're always going to look at, as we've answered, gave answers previously, around how can children sort of return home, or children who are coming into care, how can we ensure that we have a care plan to always look at reunification. That's always going to be something that we're going to be looking at, depending on.
Sorry, I think I need to clarify.
Yeah.
So I would like to know how we can improve that area. So what strategy you are implementing to resolve those issues?
Use that.
Yes.
There are certain numbers of children that should be in care. So when we're below statistical neighbours, and we were 2 below statistical neighbours 5, 4, 5, 6 years ago, that can be dangerous for some children because they should have been brought into care. So we benchmark ourselves on, and statistical neighbours aren't just the boroughs that are next door us, they're the boroughs that have similar levels of deprivation, similar levels of diversity, etc. So we wouldn't want to, I don't want you to think that because we've gone up to 51, that's a bad thing. In fact, I would see that as the opposite. We benchmark ourselves in terms of our statistical neighbours. But I guess importantly, it's have we got it right for every child? And some of the things Matt talked about before with our access to care and resources panel, if children need to come into care, that's made by the decisions made by me or Matt. That's how seriously we treat that. So it's whether we get it right for every child at the right time. And that's the most important thing.
So I think the thing you said to me is fine, but it was not included here. So it wasn't very clear.
Okay.
And if you include this thing, so I don't need to come.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
And Jane's question?
Adolescence. I can start. Matthew, you can dip in. I mean, adolescence, we have a number of factors that lead more adolescents to come into care. One is mental health and the risk, and they don't need hospitalisation, they don't need sectioning, but the families can no longer meet their needs or it's too risky. Two is exploitation, contextual risk, and how can we wrap around those children within their families, or is that too risky? And research shows that actually care doesn't solve that matter. It makes us feel better that they're in care, but it actually doesn't solve the issues of risk and heightens the risk of exploitation. When an adolescent comes into care, they are more likely to stay in care than younger children. So often you do end up with that 10 to 15 because they're not going to be adopted.
No.
They've got less chance of going with their family members. We try to reunify them home where we can, but you are going to have adolescence is your main factor now.
But does that not also include unaccompanied asylum seekers?
It does, yeah.
It does.
Sorry?
That number would also include unaccompanied asylum seekers.
Yes.
So that
Would
that might sort of skew it a little bit. Not, yeah, it does skew it.
But there are problems that actually belong to being an adolescent and that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we can't. So if you're an unaccompanied minor, you're not likely to be adopted. You're not likely to be reunified back to your home. You are our child, and will remain our child.
Thank you. Any other questions? Agenda item 7. No?
No.
If not, I have a few questions. Shantu did touch on the figure, 415 looked after children we have. I'm assuming all of them are not placed in Newham. If not, where else are they placed? And Sarah, you did mention that you do meet the foster carers, and I'm assuming it's at the foster carer forum. And Children in Care Council, you must be meeting the children as well. But the children who are placed outside, rather than just taking a report from a social worker, who goes and meets those children to understand their struggles or how better they can be supported? That's my first question.
I'm going to pass over to Matt, but children, no matter where they're placed, receive the same service. By law, they must receive the same service.
So our children are placed all over the country.
Okay.
But they would get the same services if they lived in Newham.
Okay.
I mean, when I meet with foster carers, it's our local foster carer.
It's easier. No, I get that.
Yeah, and sometimes we have a reciprocal arrangement.
Okay.
And I also meet with children, either at the Children in Care Council or the Care Leavers Forum. So yeah, and there would be, so if, for example, you were in Liverpool, there would be a Children in Care Council there that our young people would also be
part of it. Yeah. No, I get that.
Is that all right?
Yeah, and in terms of, I think it's based on our children's needs. So where we can, so when they come into care, we look at, we do a care plan and ensure that, we find the right placement based on their needs. So some children, because of risk in Newham, they can't stay in Newham. Find, somewhere else. Some are in specialist provisions, so and those are not available in Newham.
Yeah.
So we have to identify sort of provisions for them. I mean, we are always, our target, and we always hope that we want to keep children in Newham or as close to Newham as possible, but we know that that's not always possible.
And that's not because of the service that we provide, it's because of partner agency services, really. And how we've got obviously, relationships with our health authorities, our schools, we can have more influence than we can over a school in Liverpool, for example.
Yeah. So just to understand, and so the commission understands, so if a child is placed in a secure accommodation, like you mentioned,
Specialists, not
specialist, sorry, yeah. Who, apart from the social worker, who else will meet that child?
So in terms of every social worker has an independent reviewing officer.
Okay, RO, okay.
IRO who sort of meet
Yeah.
the child, make sure that their needs are being met, and they go through the usual education, health, so they'll have a regular reviews.
Yeah.
And they'll scrutinize, make sure that everything's been done.
Yeah.
So every placement will have key workers as well who will then report back to the social worker and the manager, and they'll have advocates as well.
So when does it come to the cabinet? You wouldn't.
Those days have gone.
Okay.
So Lakmini and I belong to an era.
I didn't want to mention that.
Elected members, elected members were a part of secure accommodation.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Your reviews.
Yeah. So Lakmini and I and others, Councillor Wilson being the key one, would do secure accommodation reviews.
Yeah.
Those days have gone.
Judge. Judge has taken over.
Travel to Scotland, everywhere in the country.
Don't get Neil
A
started.
quick comment, Madeline.
Sorry.
No, Madeline.
Don't forget that some of these institutions are also overseen not only by our Ofsted, because we have children placed there, but by the Ofsted who are overseeing the authority or the school or the preservation where the child is placed. Also, don't forget we have the virtual school, and the virtual school continues to have that oversight and contact, not just with the child, but with the education provision where they are placed.
To understand, so if they're placed outside, did you call it, sorry, not secure accommodation, you used specialist, yeah. They don't get education from that place where they are, but we provide the education?
Mix.
Okay.
It would depend.
Okay, all right, thank you.
In prison.
Okay, right. So my next question, I got two questions, mindful of the time. I'll ask them quickly. 8 posts for Edge of Care team are being created. A Thriving Communities team is also created. What are the outcomes that these 2 teams aim for? What's the difference? Who does what job?
They're like the Edge of Care and the Thriving Communities. So Thriving Communities work with children and adults actually between the age of 10 to 20, and these are and they link in with schools, working with children who are at risk of exploitation and serious youth violence. So that's more. So in terms of the work they do is quite similar in that the more preventative work. But Educare is specifically working with children who we think are at risk of coming into our care, where there are varied reasons why there might be risk at home or parents are struggling. So it would be specifically working with children we know coming into Educare. The Thriving Communities are working with much more younger children who are at risk of exploitation and serious youth violence. So specific to that.
Okay, thank you. Now, my next question, I'm still assuming it's under your portfolio, Sarah, but I'm going to be brave and ask it. What is the turnaround project? Because it is under you as a cabinet member, but how different is it from the youth empowerment service, what they deliver?
Oh, that is MAP again, but it isn't the same. Turnaround.
Yes, turnaround are specifically working with children who might be at risk of getting into trouble with the police or
criminal. Okay.
so being sort of in terms of risk of being arrested or being known to the youth justice service. So it's about prevention.
But it's justice more than
Okay,
empowerment.
okay. Thank you. Sorry, Jemima. Come in, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. My question is regarding fostering. As you said earlier in your presentation that it is a new foster parent to be recruited. I've done a little bit research on it, and it takes more than 6 months.
Yeah.
And if we need people to foster, what are the things that can be done so that you can get people more in? Because the process is quite intense and it's longer than it should be.
No, it's not longer than it should be.
Well, I mean, there are 2 stages to a fostering assessment. The first stage, someone makes an initial inquiry. First of all, you check their police record, you check their local authority record, and then they go on an information session to see, do they actually know what fostering is, and is that something they want to do? They then get allocated a fostering assessor, and it is a 4 to 6 month process because we are placing a vulnerable child in their care who they have full-time personal care of, access to, etc. So it needs to be a full and frank assessment about why are they fostering.
Can I make a suggestion where you can send the commission members what's the process of?
Yeah.
I think that might be, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the leaflet to
Yeah.
be up amongst your friends, please, and those you know.
There was a time, if you recommend someone and that person gets hired, yes, is that in place?
No, it is. £1,000 if that person ends up with a placement.
And look, does that include members as well?
No, we're not allowed to claim financially from this local authority.
I get it. It's just.
Get your children.
Okay, so just before I conclude this agenda item, I just have to mention colleagues. I met with DCI Seb Florent. He's the lead for safeguarding for Newham and Forest.
Yeah.
Really interesting conversation and amount of work that's happening. It's very admirable. And I would suggest that at some point we meet him and just hear the work that goes on. It's truly remarkable. So just.
And we are also very fortunate that he is also a consistent attender.
He's amazing.
I mean, do you know what I mean? It's.
Yeah.
We are lucky because actually previously they came and went.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
But Seb is actually, yeah.
Okay, so actually we should minute that because remarkable amount of work is going on behind the scenes, and it'll be good to hear from him the work the police is doing to keep our children safe. Okay, again, this report is to be noted. I want to thank the officers for bringing it and for the questions from the members. Can we agree and note this report as well?
Indeed.
Thank you. And can someone second it? Brilliant. Thank you. Right, moving on. Before I do the agenda item, which one is this? Before I do the dashboard, which is the agenda item 8, I'm going to go to agenda item 9. That is our work plan for the year. This is our second meeting. And the third meeting is going to be on 18th of February, page 90. Nothing has changed. So can we agree the work plan, which is on page 90?
Agree, Chair.
Agreed, brilliant, thank you. And before I go on to the dashboard agenda,
Chair, did you
meeting with
the follow-on item,
sorry, which one is it?
the, this workshop program?
Oh, that's right, that's right.
Okay, okay. So,
19.
I met with Laura. Well, not me, just me. It's Lester and myself. Met with the executive director to discuss education and children and young people services budget implications. And the minutes of the meeting, it's been shared today with the commission. And it's just for you to note, we have mentioned, we have met and we have discussed budget implications on CYPS. Okay, now we can move on to the dashboard. That's agenda 8. So the first page has all the areas where we need to look into, but page by page, there is a long description and information on each area. So any questions? Shantu. So this is on page 70.
Okay, sorry, just something else, checking my page number. Page 77, please.
No, I'll bring you in. So I'm going to go in order. So page 70 is percentage of infants who turned 30 days in the quarter who received a face-to-face new birth visit within 14 days, birth by a health visitor. Any questions on that? No? So just for clarity, so it's 93.5% of new births, they've had visits. Okay, that's fine. So page 71, sorry, Lester.
Is it, you think you target 93 point, I'm just curious about the 6%. Is there anything about the 6% that are missed, which are consistent?
Not that that's been audited, not that I know of. You can, I'm happy to include that in the next performance dashboard. Yeah.
I'm just curious. I mean, I wouldn't go off the number 100%, but you hit your target, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's it's that small number.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And it could be that they'd been born here and then they've moved or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But it is worth, yeah.
Jane.
I was only going to say on that point, it's not that any parent refuses a visit, is it?
No, they can refuse.
Yeah,
Can be.
Yeah.
Could be an element of that.
Helen.
Is there a link between the health visit and GPs? I used to be working in this area a long time ago. And it's not bad, but
Yeah.
you know,
Sometimes maybe is there a link between health visitors and GPs?
What you mean, parents who don't have a new birth visit don't go to their GP? Yeah, it
Don't
could be,
have
or don't want health
Aren't
services.
registered with the GP?
Yeah, I mean, it's their right not to have any health intervention. Yeah.
Okay,
We're looking at.
next one. Send percentage of education, health and care plans. I know we touched on it. Do you want to add anything else, Laura?
No, it is what the SEND system is really. There was a question last time to discuss the backlog, but I only got the minutes late, but I still need to answer that question around the backlog.
All right. So just to understand, 24.5% is where we complete it on time.
That's right.
Weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. The target is 60.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will wait to have the information from you.
Might also be, I don't know whether we have or whether we should share the inspection report.
Yeah, the SEND inspection report is public. It's online as of
online.
last Thursday. And talks about EHCP quality and contributions by other professionals.
So where would they find it?
I can send the link round. or
and
send it to Harry.
Because actually that,
Yeah,
if you remember where we were and where we are, we're now not on our
Okay.
written statement of action. We've moved out of that little intervention. I mean, we're not up there at the top, but we have moved out of there. So
Okay.
there is some good news there.
Okay. Well done.
Only as a comment, but it's surprising to see that we're actually in line with other local authorities. Yes. So it's not so bad about us.
Everybody's in a
no,
mess.
everyone's struggling.
Everybody. Yeah.
Okay. Page 72, suspensions from all Newham schools. Latest data says 2,487.
Remember, that's a suspensions, not exclusions.
Okay.
It's a few days.
No exclusions.
All right. I mean,
But do we, as a local authority, do we look at a particular school? Let's say one school's given 500. This is
Yeah, we do. That's all shared at the Education Partnership Board. All the themes are shared.
Okay.
And the schools, it's opened up at school forum, you know, to learn from each other, not as a punishment.
No.
But to learn from each other. How are you managing? What ways do you manage with our young people and our children not to suspend or exclude? I think while we're on this subject, the last minute you asked me to bring some inequality and disproportionality indicators, which there's no square on the front sheet, but it's to ask you which ones that you want to be on the front sheet to monitor. And one of them is suspensions and exclusions.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to explain that one. Another one's persistent absence, and then you've got another one in social care. So just would like your decision on that.
Okay. So I think we've got all three, isn't it? One is the suspensions, then the permanent exclusions. And
Inequality indicator, which is saying that there's disproportionality in exclusions for Black Caribbean, other Black background, white and Black Caribbean and Black African. So you're 3.5 times more likely to be suspended if you're white and Black Caribbean. That's the disproportionality ratio.
The question from that area.
yeah, I'm coming back.
So the box down the side would of that slide is recommending some of the things that the scrutiny can look at as an additional indicator.
So this is page 74 you're talking about.
we don't have page numbers.
Yeah, that's like it looks like this with the different colour boxes.
Yeah.
On that, on that,
Yeah.
right? I think it would, and I may be complicating things, but I think that we do have specific schools who suspend or exclude in a higher percentage than others.
Yeah.
And are there pupils? So do they have a higher percentage of Black pupils? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Is there an informal streaming mechanism which takes place?
thank you, Lester. Yeah.
So can I suggest, given the committee is overseeing attendance, attainment, suspensions, exclusions, all things schools on the 18th of February, we can.
Yeah, we can do it all there.
Yeah.
We can.
Down to, my question was actually from page number 17, earlier I said 74, not 77. So,
Sorry, we're on 74.
oh, I'm on 74.
Okay.
Okay. So it's true that suspension or exclusion from school are not something anyone wants to see. So everyone clear on that. No matter which ethnic group we are talking about, or high or low the number might be. My question is concerning to note the rate for Bangladeshi children is quite high. Do you have any insights into why this might be happening and how we might work together to prevent it for children of all backgrounds?
Sorry, the rate for Bangladeshi children for suspensions and exclusions isn't high. It's lower than what you would expect it to be. So the percentage all pupils is high, and the exclusions and suspension is high, but that's because we've got more children of that heritage in the background.
I mixed that.
Sorry.
Absence is higher.
Sorry?
Bangladeshi group, children, the higher rate, probably the 77.
Okay, I'm going to move on because we got 9 minutes.
It is primary or secondaries?
Or, I would imagine.
Or,
Oh,
which
the
one?
permanent exclusions are secondary.
yeah.
Right, look, we're on page 74. Does anyone have a question on page 74?
74, yeah, I'm asking that. Is all the information we have, is that for
74, the one with the chart on it, because we,
Yeah,
yeah,
is that for primary, secondary, all schools?
all schools.
Unless it shows that there's.
Hold on. All children in the borough.
Yeah,
So
primary and secondary.
Timer and then Ellen.
Thank you, Chair. Is it possible to explain, because I think it wasn't clear from Councillor
Shantu.
Shantu, she was mentioning 23%. And
yeah,
can you?
sure.
Yeah,
Sure, I can. So, 23% of our pupils are Bangladeshi. Okay. 16% of the exclusions are for Bangladeshi children. 13% of the suspensions are for Bangladeshi children. So it's lower than what you would expect it to be than the overall population.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. According to the populations.
Yes.
Probably, I haven't.
Can we have one meeting, please?
sorry, supplementary question. My question is, Black African. Why is it that so? For both suspension and exclusion?
I mean, that is a huge question. There was a big discussion at the scrutiny of the relationship between Black boys and the borough. You know, it's everything from systemic and structural racism to children feeling a sense of belonging to parental guidance to it's everything. It's a massive question. All I can recommend to the committee is what you asked me to. I'm showing you the data. And it is stark for any other Black background children, Black Caribbean and white and Black Caribbean, as well as Black African children.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the officers to share the Black Boys Scrutiny Commission report, because all these figures are elaborated on there. So you'll have a better understanding what work has gone there and why is it the numbers are high. Ellen, do you want to come in? Is it page 74?
Yes, it is. I was wondering, page 74 doesn't highlight the area of SEND pupils in that. And I wonder, because I had to do 2 SEND exclusions in May of this year, and I've never done that before.
Okay.
Basically because the schools couldn't meet the need
Or didn't want to.
of the pupil.
Okay.
So
Laura, do you want to come back?
There are some intersectionality issues in relation to SEND, particularly our data shows that children from Black and global majority groups are more likely to have a late diagnosis, for example. So then that affects how perhaps the schools see persistent disruptive behaviour. If I was to recommend something to you in terms of disproportionality data, I wouldn't recommend the exclusion one, because you're talking about low numbers of children, which can always, Exactly. So what councillor Hudson's saying, you're talking a group of 2,487 suspensions. That's representative. And I would think about where our white and black Caribbean children, for example, are highly disproportionate in that area. So if you want an additional box put on so you can monitor and set a target around how you would like to see that disproportionality reduce.
I would like something even,
So,
because I think I would be really interested, and I think we probably is actually, do we have a pattern of where that is across the borough? So and I think it is, there are certain schools, but I also think that schools don't understand that suspending a child for 3 days, they're not likely to be at home. They'll be roaming the streets. So I know that there was a high percentage of suspensions at Royal Dock School. And when I spoke to them, they said, well, so I said, yes, but where are these young people going to be during the day? I said, because I tell you where they are. They're wandering the streets, getting into mischief. So it is about, you know, is it geographical? Are there more suspensions in East Ham than there are in Custard?
Madeline, quick comment.
There's one area that is personally of interest to me, and maybe it's just one of those when I retire PhD topics, but we do have some, where we're talking about such small numbers here, and I know 200 and something is a large number, but across our whole school population, it is a small percentage, okay? And that doesn't mean to detract from its importance. But I'm also thinking about those students who, from vulnerable communities where we have poor attendance overall, like our Roma, Gypsy, Traveller community, and next is our white and black mixed communities, where we actually have the lowest, our highest numbers. Are some of those children who are not attending, were they in school, would they be likely to be those being excluded? So are we actually missing some of our possible exclusion numbers from vulnerable groups because actually they're not even turning up to school?
So Councillor Sally Ponton is pointing out on the slide around persistent absence, you'll see Gypsy Roma community, really high disproportionality ratio, 3.3. double the amount of any other children, because the numbers are so small, it's the data team advises me that that's statistically significant. That's not to say we don't know that and we wrap around, but it's basically, you know, if you've got 10 children, it's nearly, you know, half of them or 2/3 of them. So that's the other indicator that in terms of the disproportionality indicator, that education wise, I recommend you do one or start with one, but that's the other one you could look at. You could look at persistent absence, and what the data team are advising is that is white and black Caribbean again, and white British are our highest disproportionate statistic.
Okay, it is 9 o'clock. I'm going to move on to the next page, which is persistent absence in primary schools. Any questions on that?
Obviously, COVID had an influence, but I find this number really worrying, because if a child is not attending school, primary school, it's likely to fall into secondary school. And if you ever go into work and you have an attendance record like that, you're going to be sacked.
So the persistent absence in primary school is most likely to be due to holidays.
Yeah.
But even with holidays, even if you said 2 weeks, you've got 36-week terms, 2 weeks doesn't take you to 20%.
Yeah, but some
No,
are
no, no.
taking longer than 2 weeks.
4 weeks is only 10%.
Can I come back?
No, wait, Laura.
No, it's about the percentage of children who have missed 10% or more. So it's not that they've all taken 18.5% off school. is that 18.5% of our primary school children have taken off half a day a week.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Lester?
I'm not saying it's not concerning, councillor Hudson. I'm with you.
Okay,
So
yeah.
you know how many of the children were fined?
No, that's something that I
We
could.
can,
Can look into it
Yeah.
because next agenda is about.
that's not consistent.
Okay, page 76. Consistent absence in secondary schools. Any questions?
It's the same sort of thing, isn't it?
Okay.
Can I come back with one of the things?
Sorry.
Can I come back on attendance? The borough supplies services to schools to assist them with improving attendance and with liaison with parents through whatever an educational social worker is now called. They used to be called educational social workers. And they give support not only to the senior leadership team in the schools from the teaching point of view and the pastoral point of view, but also to the school business managers to allow them to ensure that these school registers are not only taken appropriately and conform with legality, but also that the legal follow-ups are taken with parents. At that first stage of issuing fines and being put onto the educational social workers list, that is done in liaison with the head teacher who knows the families well and knows what stresses and strains those families have been under and whether it's likely that the child may have been for a long holiday or they may know that maybe there's shared care between parents that live in different locations and therefore a child may miss half a day every other week because something to do with people getting things right with shared parenting. So that's why it falls under the head teacher in the first instance, but with advice, legal advice and admin advice from the educational social worker team, which is it Synergy?
I don't know, but all I know is that you have to pay for that service.
Right.
Can I make a suggestion on the data dashboard, if you
Yes.
don't mind, councillor Shah, in the interest of time? I'm happy to take any questions on any page, but what I would like is the decision about what disproportionality indicators, one from education. I've recommended the one from social care re-referrals. What particular group do you want us to look at so I can include it in the next data dashboard? And they've got a couple of months, given
February.
the Christmas, to collect it.
So what we have looked here, can't we do the same?
All the same, but what do you want to drill down on as a commission? Which community group?
Okay.
I recommend suspensions for white and black Caribbean children.
Okay.
You could do persistent absence for white British and white and black Caribbean children. It's up to you. And then the recommended one for social care is you are more likely to need a social care
Re-referral.
input in your family. You're 1.4 times more likely if you are white or if you are black or black British. So I recommend you can do both, but given the disproportionality and the impact on being from a black and global majority group, I would recommend black or black British in terms of re-referral rates.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
So can I also, I know what Councillor Ruiz said about number suspensions, about which part of Newham, can we have different rates on that?
If we collect it like.
We do collect it, but I think you need that annually in the local report for February rather than monitoring it at every commission, because it's just going to, yeah.
Okay. So moving on, page 78. Are there any questions there? I think we're doing well there, isn't it?
The title of that.
Number of hours young people are engaged in influencing activities.
Okay.
I think we're doing well there.
Yeah.
Over target. All right. Number of knife crime injury victims aged 1 to 24. Do you want to say something on that, Laura?
It's, I mean,
On up, isn't it?
up. Yeah. The Youth Justice Management Board are overseeing that. There's been some challenge about whether the children are ill, young people are from Newham or come to Newham. So we're looking at a bit of the data behind that.
So you will have that data next time round.
Yeah, we should do. Yeah.
Yeah, quickly. I
Yeah.
think you were looking for previously in our discussion in a group and working group. We want to find out the police they are working at a school or not to prevent this.
That's coming to the next one. So I did meet with Lucky Singh. So there's been some changes, but it's coming to the next commission because it's about education.
Yeah, I mean, to prevent the night front.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's built,
Yeah.
it's because it's in schools, it will come to February's meeting.
February meeting. Ellen?
It's not the data, but is there a sharing of good practice in these areas between schools?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Not all schools share the good practice, but the schools forum promote that and the partnership board.
Share of a school that's got 100% days of occupancy. And it would be good to, that's what I wanted, so that other schools can learn.
Then absolutely.
Improve their actions. Thank you.
Okay. So first time entrance to youth justice system, rate per 100,000. That's page 80. Any questions on that? No. Percentage of children becoming the subject of a child protection plan for a second or subsequent time. Any questions? Is it, just to understand, if a child does have a child protection plan, is it the case that that child will again have one? It won't stop there, will it?
No, it's children who have suffered significant harm and need a child protection plan. Then everything's okay. And then 3 years later, 5 years later, they're suffering harm again.
Okay.
18.3% of those
who've gone on a plan have been on a plan before. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, moving on. Percentage of re-referrals within 12 months. So that's the child protection plan.
No, that's just re-referral.
It refers to social care. So those social care were involved, and we close their our involvement, and then it's returned back to social care for statutory intervention.
Okay.
So the referrals in 12 months.
So page 83 is tackling racism, inequality and disproportionality. Any questions on that?
Social care folks.
We decided we're going to do black or black British.
Yeah. Next.
Okay. Moving on. The last slide, page 84, care leavers in employment, education or training. I think we discussed it in the previous agenda. Are you satisfied with these figures? Are the questions answered? If you have other questions, you can write to Laura. Is that okay, Laura?
Yeah.
We will be looking at some of the
Every scrutiny.
The next meeting in February.
Yeah.
The dashboards will be coming to every scrutiny meeting. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, that brings to the end of our agenda, and the time is what, 10 past, not yet, 8 past 9. Is it?
It's wrong.
Yes.
Listen. So I want to.
Yeah, got it.
And the officers coming tonight, it's been really valuable, and for members for all your input.
Thank you, Chair.
And that brings us to a close